I'm finding this very interesting. This crypto FTX thing, and I I was hesitant to cover my initial reaction because my initial reaction was Elon Musk saying, "Oh, they'll never investigate this guy, Sam Bankman Fried." He's referring to, and I'll lay out all the players here in a second. And I was like, "Why not?" And he's like, "Because they're all he's just a giant Democratic donor. They will never investigate him." And give it 1 week, and everything has changed. So my initial reaction was to look and talk about some of this stuff like 2 weeks ago, and I held off, thank goodness, because it gave me about a bit of time to read up and understand the players a little bit more. Because up front, I don't trade in cryptocurrency. I frankly don't believe in cryptocurrency as a legitimate currency. And I will connect all of this to the political aspect here, but I think it's important to note like all of this from all the different angles. I'll explain some stuff from an accountant angle, and I will explain some of this from a political interpretation angle. But first, I want to show you the most ironic commercial that could possibly exist for FTX.
Like I was saying, it's FTX. It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
I don't think so. And I'm never wrong about this stuff. Never.
So it's that's the that's the updated version where Larry's actually right. So if you saw last year's Super Bowl, FTX bought these giant advertisements featuring Larry David, featuring all these different celebrities, talking about how it's the best place to buy and sell cryptocurrency. And of course, if you've watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry is, the skeptical, bitter old man. And he's like, yeah, no, probably not. And like the whole joke is that they're making fun of him for being an old, geezer basically behind the times. But Larry in the commercials is right, because if you kept your money out, you're better off for the most part. I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there that probably got rich. So let me explain what is going on, because I think a lot of people rightfully don't know what's going on, because there is there genuinely is a lack of coverage on this. So I will tell you, I've read a few articles, I've listened to interviews on mainstream media. I listened to an interview of David Dayen with Jon Stewart, and I have also listened to a few interviews of this online guy. I think his name's CoffeeZilla, interviewing Sam Bankman-Fried himself. I've watched this guy get interviewed about the interviews and the alleged fraud. So like I did relatively a lot of due diligence in the last week, I should say, regarding this, because it's very interesting from my perspective being an accountant and understanding how these overlapping pieces work. So with that being said, let me lay the groundwork for you and we'll go from there. First things first, what the hell is FTX? FTX is a cryptocurrency exchange. So basically, it's one of those, for simplicity's sake, an app that you can go and you can buy and sell crypto. It's like Coinbase, or another one is Binance. And Binance is like I said, it's another form of a cryptocurrency marketplace where you can sell it. What happens on these is they make money just from the trades. They make money just from small fees, doing this, that, and the other thing, just like you would if you were trading stocks like TD Ameritrade or Wells Fargo, whatever all that stuff is, right? Simple. That's the marketplace. Now, there is this guy, Sam Bankman Fried, who, and I will, he is a little bit of a goofy character. You know, it doesn't look like the fraudster you would expect that he ends up being exactly. He kind of just looks like a gamer bro, just hanging out, playing some video games. But this dude was the CEO. Well, he was the founder and for a little while the CEO of something called Alameda. And Alameda is a hedge fund for cryptocurrencies specifically. But a hedge fund is basically just an amalgamation of stocks, different investments, bonds, and all of it is put together and people invest in it and it kind of moves and goes up and down together, right? Sam Bankman Fried sounds like he's about to be Sam Jailman. I can't even see the last word. I butchered your joke. Yeah, so what happens here is that Alameda was the beginning of Sam Bankman Fried's engagement with cryptocurrency beyond him just being a stock broker basically on Wall Street. So he worked on Wall Street, then he started his own thing when he was in his early 20s, because I think he's still in his 20s. Or maybe he's 31. He was born in 92. I don't know why I remember that, but with that, he started this with a bunch of other guys, right? Made a lot of money. The way they make money, this is Alameda, not FTX. We'll get there in a second. I know there's a lot of lead up to it. Alameda makes money, or it did, by basically buying cryptocurrencies. Let's just use Bitcoin as the example. In, let's say, America, and then selling them internationally into an exchange where the exchange rate is different. So basically, it's like buying a United States dollar and then selling it over in Japan in exchange for their currency when that currency has a different value there, right? And you're making margins on those slight trades. Now, cryptocurrency is unregulated, so you have a lot more range in the value. So they make a ton of money that way. It's an algorithm. So it would basically just, it was just based on math. It would just do this, trigger, boom, sell. This, trigger, boom, buy. And made a lot of money. But it wasn't enough money. Because it never is for some of these guys, right? So that greed drove him to start FTX, which was invested in by Binance, which again was the other trading platform, which got it off the ground. But then FTX just started blowing up because FTX was really cheap. You could buy all this cryptocurrency, you could do all this stuff with very low fees. And they have this CEO that's this really I have to look up I wrote it down. It was he coined this phrase that effective altruism, which is functionally just saying he's a really nice guy, even though he's a billionaire. He's just a really nice guy. He cares about giving money back. He gives to charity. He starts this and does that, whatever. I'll get to that, why it's all bunk eventually, but just note that this was the perception he was building. And he was working on creating this, and this is where it starts to overlap with the political piece. He was beginning to develop this relationship where he was the front-facing guy that was this effective altruist, and he was just the philanthropist, nice billionaire. Yeah, he had a lot of money, but he cared about giving back. And what happened was he gave millions of dollars to Democratic candidates. And that is the highlighted part by Elon Musk that everyone kind of ran with. Oh, he's not going to get investigated because he gave all his money to Democrats. Now, not knowing this could be very damning, but the reality is that a counterpart that also worked in FTX used a dark money pack to give the exact same amount of money to Republicans as well. And the reason they were doing this, basically, is to develop that public image, to develop the nice guy that's coming in to say, oh, it's like kind of like what Mark Zuckerberg kind of did with Facebook a little bit, right? Where he goes, oh, don't worry. You want to regulate cryptocurrency? You should bring me in. I'm an expert on cryptocurrency. You should let me come in and tell you how to regulate it because I know how to work it. It's like saying, hey, I trade derivatives all day. You should come and let me make the decisions on how to regulate the derivatives. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just letting the fox out, and I can't even think of the right freaking metaphor, because it's just absolutely insane to go through that and say, yeah, this totally makes sense. Yeah, we want all the social media companies to regulate themselves. Yeah, we want cryptocurrency companies to regulate themselves, even though they make money off of not being regulated, and they can scam and rip off their customers. We're almost at the fraud piece here too. So what happens is there starts to be some back and forth beefing about what had happened with Binance originally. Again, Binance not buying FTX in the beginning, but financing them in the beginning. And in exchange, FTX gives Binance cryptocurrency. But hear me out. It's not a Bitcoin. It's not Ethereum. It's none of these normal. It's not Dogecoin. They give Binance FTT, which is FTX's cryptocurrency that they made up. Okay, that's fine, right? If they accept that, they accept that. But what happens is, in November, Binance looks at the balance sheet. So the balance sheet is basically it looks at your assets, liabilities, and equity for a company. One of the major documents for a financial statement for a company. On that balance sheet, an overwhelming majority of assets held by Alameda and FTX are FTT, which is just that FTX token. So Binance basically says, this company's not worth anything. We're going to sell all of our FTTs. But what happened then is they had, I think it was like $3 billion worth of this token. And that might be a misquote. So just take that with an asterisk. They go and sell, Binance does, all of its investment in FTT, which effectively what happens then is when the supply goes up, the price goes down. It's like stocks, right? If I have a stock in Connor Corporation and I have one stock, that one stock is whatever the value of the company is. If I have 1,000 shares of stock, that 1,000 shares is divided by the total value, and you get a price per share. Now, cryptocurrency, not so simple. It's metaphorically similar, but it is not so. It's not exactly one for one. So you look at the supply, and you look at the amount of coins. That's the way you look at it instead. And as they're selling them, the amount of coins in the exchange just skyrockets up, dropping the price down. And then people that normal people, let's just say you or me, were invested in FTT or were using FTX, which is largely supported by FTT as the value, how they get money. Because this is also important to note. Companies get debt based on their assets. Like you can leverage your assets, but the thing is that they were leveraging FTT, which is not a real thing. Let's just keep reminding ourselves that cryptocurrencies are not real. Like they exist in the ether, but it's not a real thing. So they would end up not being able to finance stuff. They would not be able to buy. They are losing liquidity, which just means they have no cash on hand. So when someone like me or you wants to go and cash out our investments in FTT or any of our investments on FTX for that matter, there's no money. And why was there no money? Because Sam Bankman Fried, allegedly, and through coordination of FTX and Alameda, commingled funds from average traders like you or me and put it, instead of holding it in FTX, which is the trading platform, moved it over to Alameda into the hedge fund. And when all of the FTT shot down, the value of the hedge fund dropped, and there's no cash to pay back the people that are trying to pull their money out. The easy comparison here is saying the Great Depression. Everybody knows the story of the Great Depression where everyone was running to the bank saying, I need to get my money out of the bank, whatever, I have $10,000 there, I have to go get it. And then the banks just have no money, leading to the crash that happened. This is the exact same thing. This is literally the exact same thing. Now, to be fair, this is one of the crypto exchanges, but it is a major crypto exchange. And the biggest, saddest part of this is what happens in a liquidation or a bankruptcy, because this is what happens then is when all of that happened, the company goes under and they liquidate all the assets, and then they pay out the biggest debtors first and they prioritize them. So if I had $10 million that FTX owed me, I'd be prioritized over average Joe that might have had their life savings, but it might have only been $10,000 or $20,000 in Bitcoin on FTX. So when it dissolves, all the little guys get screwed. All of this is happening, and the fraud would have never been caught. Or maybe it would have eventually, but it wouldn't have been caught if Binance didn't sink FTX by selling off all of the coins, which created that liquidity shortage. And we would have never known that, again, allegedly, FTX and Alameda were commingling funds illegally, which is just fraud, by the way, and using them to trade cryptocurrency. Again, another connection here is this is the exact same thing, and some of you that remember Bernie running in 2016, this is what Glass-Steagall was used for in the banking industry, to keep banking institutions from trading institutions and commingling funds, not being able to take from a bank and send it over into an investment fund. But of course, remember that Glass-Steagall doesn't exist anymore. It was gutted in the Clinton administration. But it's the exact same thing. So what does this all mean? Why am I talking about it? What it really means is that, first of all, that crypto is hurting. I've never believed in cryptocurrency personally. I've never thought that without like the physical tangibility of having like something actually there, that it's worth anything. I know that a lot of people invested in it, and that's fine. Like it's different theory, right? For me, I just don't engage with that. But the overall market for cryptocurrency is in rough shape from this. So I think the trust for people is down the drains. I think that people are not gonna, well, I don't know. I think that people are starting to become more skeptical of billionaires, which is what we should be. Talking about that effective altruism, the utilitarian nature of the Tony Stark-esque character is not real. It's not real. They're playing characters. They're playing a role that gets them in a position to make more money. Again, knowing that if he is the front-facing guy and he just gives it to Democrats, then the Republicans will be, average Joe Republicans will be saying, oh, he's just a liberal, he's just a liberal shill. He's just giving all his money to them, not even recognizing that they're giving the exact not close to the same, not half, the exact same amount of money to Republicans to make sure that there is no regulation on cryptocurrency, or that if there is regulation, that they're in the room to help decide it. And I'll remind you, they're not giving donations to the progressive left. They're giving donations to corporate Democrats, the ones that they can get. So it leads us to this: what do we do from here? And it amplifies a message that we've talked about here a few times. And it's dismantling the idea of the fetishization of wealth in America. Wealth being the driving factor here does not make anyone an expert in anything other than what they might be an expert in. That lane that they might make money in, that sliver, that might be their expertise. But you look at Elon Musk, you look at Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, all these different people that are billionaires. People like them, people don't like them. Whatever. They're people. They're flawed. They have interests, they have expertise. Their expertise over here doesn't make them an expert in their interest. Because you can make money here doesn't mean that you can fix the healthcare system or the education system over here with a stroke of a pen. That's just not how it works. In America, we have started to see the decline of the greed is good fantasy and start to recognize, and I think this is because the rise of the millennial generation and with the Zoomers as well, we will start to continue down that path of just because you're rich doesn't mean you're a good guy. Just because you're rich doesn't mean that you earned it. Just because you're rich doesn't mean that you deserve more than your neighbor or the guy down the street, or frankly, the homeless person that is overlooked while you are lifted up on a pedestal. Because while the Bezos of the world are labeled as these liberal activists, real progressives are talking about taxation reforms that would actually take money, redistribute it, get people off the street, get food in bellies of kids, get food on the back of people, get shelter, like provide clean water. This is really the crux of this. The obsession with these billionaires continues to blind people to the blatant fraud that's happening right in front of them. Cryptocurrency, these markets are ripe for fraud, ripe for manipulation, ripe for the standard issues of finance with no regulation whatsoever. And furthermore, the other day now, Sam Bankman Fried gets arrested in the Bahamas, because I didn't even mention that. The company is based out of the Bahamas because it's a tax haven. But because of the amount of money, and I'm going to pull up the exact... so it was... Yeah. So in the Bahamas, I think he owed like some extreme amount of money. I can't find it off the top of my head. I have a couple articles over here, but regardless. And they arrested him, and they're like, for him to get extradited to the United States, it'll be interesting to see. He was supposed to testify before Congress, and I had pulled a clip of AOC interviewing this guy, John J. Ray III, who this is their new CEO. So I'll close with this actually, but John J. Ray III is a lawyer who specializes in liquidations, right? So he worked on the Enron liquidation. So if you went to business school, or if you just existed in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Enron scandal is the textbook definition. Like literally not like not like in theory it's a textbook definition. Like I went to business school, and in the textbook, Enron is the definition of fraud. And this guy, the new CEO that is taking over the liquidation for FTX, said that FTX makes Enron look like a joke. So we're just getting started on this, but from a political point of view, I just want to continue to point out that the right wing will always try to point out hypocrisy, saying, why aren't you investigating this guy? Why aren't you doing that to this? Why don't you look at there? And yet, they were actually going to investigate Sam Bankman Fried. He will likely be in prison. He's in prison. He's going to be in prison in the Bahamas. But I'm saying, even if he gets him to the United States, he will be in prison. He's blaming it on his girlfriend, or his ex-girlfriend, I don't know, who is the CEO or was the CEO of Alameda. Talk about nepotism. But that is the type of thing where it's like, no, we're putting people like AOC to interview them. We're putting people that care about fighting this stuff and prosecuting them, because white collar crime is much more rampant in America than that average day, violence that is spread across our local media everywhere. These are the people that you need to make sure that we're taking them off the streets and redistributing that wealth, because they're stealing it from everyday Joe, average Joes. They're just taking it from everybody and running rampant with it.